All my cooking kit that I carry, adding a few bits back in, changing a bit. So I thought I'd try some of it out, see if it's working alright. Some of it I haven't used for a very long time. So I thought I'd do breakfast on the patio. It's always good to practice stuff at home if you can. Recipes, even if you're cooking in the kitchen, you might as well try out what you think you're going to eat, especially if it's something new, because fire always makes it more tricky. So I'm going to do a simple, well, 2-pot breakfast. In here, this is just a bag for my zebra billy. So I think I'm going to make like the larger one I have here out of oilcloth. This is just a fabric, just to check the size and get it right. These open up flat, so you can use them as a tablecloth. And here I've got my standard 12cm billy that I've used for a good many years. It sits in standard hobo pot. This was an Asda drainer, which fits basically perfectly around the billy. Unfortunately, they seem to sold it for a very short time, and I've never seen it since. I'd like to get another one and just change the cutouts very slightly, but it works well. So I just set it up quickly. It hasn't got any legs on it, so I put this little plate in just to give some air underneath. I found out that working it straight on the bottom, it didn't burn quite so well, so that just gives it a 1/2 inch air gap. And I can also bolt in a Trangia gas insert there if I want to. These are just normal skewers. There we go. So, camp bits and pieces, fire lighting kit in the lid. Keeps it out of the way. Coffee sachets, pot washer, spices, all in a little bucket that fits. A guy I've met at the Cornish RV, again, must be about 10 years ago now, kindly made me this to fit perfectly in the billy. I hate when you've got a billy can, you take everything out, you've got nowhere to put it, and it just goes everywhere. So it's a handy little bucket carrier.
Hi Daddy.
Hello Holly.
I said I would.
Yes, you wanted to join in. Oh
Yeah,
dear.
I did. What are you doing?
I'm going to cook you breakfast.
No.
Oh yes, bacon, mushrooms,
Yeah.
peas.
No. I don't like breakfast. Breakfast is a pointless meal. What?
I think we're going to be annoyed all morning now, sorry people. So, let's get the fire going. Okay, let's get the fire going. Just going to use some birch bark. Nice bushcrafty. And my convenient little Bic lighter. As I say, we're practicing cooking here, not fire lighting. Maybe I do need to practice fire lighting. On another note, this sort of thing, which is a massive lighter, I've also got a huge ferro rod, huge matches, is good for demonstrating to kids. They can all see it from afar. So that's what I've got that for. Birch bark and some Christmas tree. I've already done all the firewood prep. There's hundreds of videos of people with axes chopping and messing around with firewood. It's not difficult. That's one of the few things I don't like about these hobo stoves is you've really got to put a lot of effort into processing your firewood down to the right size. Whereas an open fire, it doesn't matter how long or big your firewood is, you don't have to chop it up unless you need more bits and can't find any. You can just burn through and move it in as a star fire. This way is a lot more labour intensive. I say on a main fire, the only prep you should need to do is your gathering the wood and your initial fire lighting, kindling. Hopefully that should settle down now. So what we're going to have for breakfast, I've got my pot. Let's just get all this out of the ash. So my zebra billy normally goes in a side pouch with a hammock, and my other side pouch has got all my admin stuff, water, emergency kit, bits and pieces, and they can zip off and make a day pack. So I've always got a cooking kit and a shelter. When they zip back onto the main bag, I used to carry, and I've only just made a new one now, something like this, although it's in a new food bag. This is a wok. It's a Chinese wok, cheap one for the market. Solid steel, so relatively heavy for what it is. It's not a titanium pot, but it's a lot lighter than the Dutch oven. It doesn't take up much space. Well, it doesn't take up any space the way it's packed. And this is also the food bag, so most of the weight in here is probably enough food for many days if you spread it out and supplement it. Again, this is a 30-inch disc of oilcloth, so that can be spread out. Space here so we can see everything in the camera shot. Unfortunately, I don't have a cameraman to move around. All the food can be dumped out back in the bag, and that can be picked up and moved and hung up if you wanted to. And we have here our 10-inch steel wok. As I say, it doesn't actually weigh that much. It's a mil thick, 3/4 mil thick. Being steel, it's not going to bend, warp or melt like aluminium or titanium in the fire, so we can actually use it dry if we wanted to cook breads in it, or even upside down as a small single-sided oven. So we're going to use that in a minute. First off, we need to get the first part of breakfast on, which is this. This is buckwheat, fairly staple in Russia, and in fact this is from the Russian supermarket for some friends of mine. And this, what you want is the roasted or cooked buckwheat. You don't want the raw stuff, okay? It needs to be the roasted stuff. You can actually cook this more in a dry pan and turn it into a sort of popcorn, which is quite tasty and crunchy. So this stuff, 100 grams is 363 kcals, or calories, whatever you want to call it. So 18% of your daily allowance. So it's a good solid carbohydrate. It's got a good calorie to weight ratio, and it's got a good pack density, i.e. that bag when full is a kilo, so that's going to last you a long time. So I like to boil it like a porridge. Yeah, you can add it to stews, etc. But yeah, we're just going to boil it up plain. There's no need to soak the stuff. Another handy thing, this is the cup leg or whatever they call it. This is the little 50-60mm shot glass, I guess. It's actually quite handy. I might make a wooden one or something different, but it does the job perfectly. I use it as a measuring cup. Whatever you carry, it's good to have things to measure. If you're carrying a set amount of rations, you don't want to overuse it, or you don't want to have a day where you don't eat enough. So measuring is a good thing. Cups and cup measures are quite common. As a volume, it's easier than, you don't need to have scales. So 2 cups of this, of buckwheat, is about 90-100 grams. So there's my allowance. And what I do is I mix it with 3-to-1 with water. So 2 buckwheat is 6 water. I've also on here, you can see, I've marked the volume on here, so this is 60ml or 1/4 of a normal cup. And I do that with any of the stuff I carry. Again, you don't want to be wasting water, so there's no point overcooking it. I won't go mushy. Same with rice, you need the right amount of water. If we put that on there, and we want to bring that to a boil. Okay, so we've got a boil going. Then we can add today's ration of buckwheat. So that just needs a gentle simmer for about 15 minutes until it's sort of fluffed up and expanded. I haven't done it, but my Russian friends tell me that if you use the unroasted stuff or the uncooked, pre-cooked stuff, it basically turns to a horrible mush. And unfortunately that's what most supermarkets seem to sell, is the uncooked, unroasted stuff. So let's bring that to a simmer and leave that for about 15 minutes. So for the rest of the breakfast, the second pan, you can eat the buckwheat like a porridge. I think add a bit of salt in it, butter, and you can eat it straight like that. I think some people even just put milk in it, a bit like porridge, although it's a bit more savoury really. It's quite nutty, it's very nice. But I thought I'd do a British Russian fusion, so we're going to have bacon and sausage porridge. So mainly because I want to try out my bush wok and see if it's okay on the stove. I used to use an 8-inch wok on this quite happily. This is slightly bigger. So what we should do is fry up some onion. Always handy to have a little vegetable paring knife around camp. They're very useful. I think half an onion is going to be plenty for this, so I'll use the rest of it later. And there we go. It's actually got quite a fine lean grind on. This is what I use for processing deer, and I think I must have not sharpened it after the last one. So to go with that, I've got some bacon, an egg, which I'll put down here. Leave, Freckles. Good girl. You can tell it's cooking time, the dogs are circling. In fact, let's just put those in there for the minute. Quick check on the buckwheat. Yep, fire's slowed down to a nice little simmer now. It was getting a bit feisty. So, sausages into lumps. And the bacon. Not sure if I'm going to put the egg in now at the moment or not, but we'll see how it feels like when we get there. I'll wipe off later. So there's the food prep done. Nice light breakfast for a hard day in the bush. Just a quick check. Still got a little while to go yet. So there's still liquid in there. You can actually put in gravy stock powder or anything into the water if you want to flavour them a bit. You can see they're starting to fluff up and split now, but there's still water in there. And like rice, what we want to do is cook it gently until all the water is absorbed, and then we can leave it to sit for a while. Okay, so I've just taken the buckwheat off and set it aside. It can rest for 10 to 15 minutes while we cook up the bacon, and just building the fire back up to what you'd normally expect to use on a wok. So let's get on and cook the rest of it. Let's say we've got the wok. These were designed to run on small twiggy fires using little amounts of fuel with small fast burning hot twigs, which is exactly what a lot of bushcraft cooking is on. So they're very efficient for cooking. So stick that on there and get it up to temperature. I do, well, you can use any piece of hazel or rod with a saw cut in it as a handle on this. I also carry a cut down pot holder because I can use it to lift the pots, the lids and the stove. So what we need is a bit of fat. This is Trex, which is a vegetable fat. You can use anything, but I find that unlike a lot of fats, when you put it in, even if it's hot, it doesn't sizzle itself. So it can be a bit deceiving of whether it's got up to temperature. I think it's because there's no water in it basically, there's nothing to boil out. If you put butter in here, it'll automatically sizzle. There we go. Hopefully that's up to temperature now. There we go. And if you season these properly, which isn't difficult, if you follow the instructions that come with them, and use a bit of oil when you're cooking, they really don't stick at all, and you can pretty much wipe them clean. That's the only issue with these small hobo stoves. You've really got to keep on top of your fuel. Or you're going to run out. Something I'm obviously quite out of practice with, so I haven't used this for quite a while. Okay, a quick trip back to the Christmas tree for some more faster burning fuel. And we're going a bit better now. I have for years wanted to get a firebox stove because it meets most of the criteria I like in one of these stoves. In that I really don't like the honey stove style or any of that type where you've got to put it together. Basically you've got lots of very thin, very sharp, even if they've been deburred, pieces of stainless, which you have to remember how to put together. And they can twang out and cut you, especially if you've got cold hands. you're very tired and you really just want to get something cooking. So I like this one because it's there, it's one piece, it fits perfectly around the pot, so it doesn't take up any space for packing, and the inside of which gets dirty matches the outside of the pot that gets dirty, so they protect each other even though they're in a bag. Again, it keeps all the soot and grime away from everything else naturally, whereas once you start taking a honey stove or anything apart, all the bits are covered in soot, your pot's covered in soot, and that's got to go in somewhere as well. And as I say, you've then got a bag that you've got to store as well, whereas I say the pot's in that, it's done. So the firebox meets the criteria that it folds, so it's not too difficult to get put up, and all the dirty sooty bits stay within it inside. But it is obviously a separate package thing, and probably compared to this, relatively heavy. But hey ho, as I say, I've been looking at one for years and keep putting it in my checkout cart, but never pressing the button due to the cost. But we shall see. I much prefer cooking on a normal open fire like most of us do, I suspect. Quick check on there. Yeah, all the water's gone. It's not welded to the bottom, which is always a good sign in camp cooking. It's fluffed up nicely. Smells pretty good. That's better. Now we got some temperature. Now, do I put the egg in or not? I think we might as well, it's here. Good mix up. Quite a good spatula this. I made it from a piece of apple from the garden 3 or 4 years ago now. I normally use it in the kitchen. It's one of my my favourite cooking spatulas, nice and thin, and it's used many times a week. And it goes through the dishwasher, so every few months I just give it a little trim on the end, maybe just to take any of the fluff off. But yeah, like I say, this has been through the dishwasher hundreds of times, so it doesn't need hand washing. Obviously you wouldn't want to do that with some of the softer woods, but yeah. Saves me making another one just to do breakfast out on the patio anyway. Right, so that's pretty hot now. Then we can just chuck the porridge in. Just mix it through. And so the Russians normally add salt to this and just use it as a side dish, a bit of salt and butter. I haven't bothered putting any salt in this because obviously we've got bacon and other things in here with plenty of salt in. So there you go, breakfast on the patio. English, Russian, Asian fusion. So I'm going to eat this now. I hope you enjoy your breakfast and the rest of your day.